Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. How was your weekend?
In the bustling heart of Kumasi, Ghana, stood the Grand Ashanti Gold Mining Corporation, a place where ambition and greed danced together like old lovers. People came not just to work, but to compete, to climb, to crush anyone in their path. Among them was a young man named Kwame. Kwame was handsome in a quiet way, the kind of beauty that whispered rather than shouted. His eyes held kindness that seemed out of place in this corporate jungle. While others schemed and gossiped, Kwame helped the elderly security guard carry heavy files, shared his lunch with anyone who looked hungry, and never missed his evening prayers. But Kwame was also different. He didn't talk much, didn't join the office politics, and many saw him as strange, too soft for the harsh world of corporate Ghana. In that same building, a new cleaner started work. Her name was Akojua, or at least, that's what she told them. Akojua wore a faded uniform, carried an old mop and a cracked plastic bucket, and always smelled like cheap soap. The other workers laughed when she passed by. "Look at this woman," they whispered. "She doesn't even walk like a proper cleaner. See her hands, too soft for this work." They didn't know that Akojua had never cleaned anything in her life before that week. Kwame noticed how everyone treated her. He hated it. One morning, when Akojua dropped her mop and the floor became slippery, a senior staff member named Mama ESI pushed past her roughly, almost making her fall. "Stupid woman!" Mama ESI shouted. "Are you blind? Can't you see important people working here?" Kwame stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "She's just trying her best." Mama ESI hissed. "Yai, Kwame. Do you like cleaners now? Is that your level?" Kwame turned away without replying. That day, during lunch break, he brought Akojua fresh kelewele and a bottle of cold water. "You didn't have to," she said, her voice surprisingly educated for a cleaner. "You looked hungry," he replied with a warm smile. "And no one should be treated the way they treat you." Something inside Akojua shifted. In this harsh world, she had found unexpected gentleness. Little did Kwame know, this simple act of kindness would change both their lives forever. The rains came hard the next morning. Dark clouds hung over Kumasi like a blanket of sorrow, and thunder rumbled across the city. Kwame arrived soaked to the bone. His umbrella had broken in the wind, and his worn shoes squelched with every step. No one offered him a towel. No one asked if he was okay. In fact, when Mama ESI saw him, she burst out laughing. "He's wet like a street dog," she shouted. "Cleaner's boyfriend." The whole office roared with laughter. Even the security guard tried to hide his chuckles. Kwame stood there, cold and dripping, hugging his warm bag to his chest. Akojua watched from the corner as she swept a section of floor. Every part of her wanted to throw down her broom and tell them who she really was, but she didn't. Not yet. She had to be sure. When Kwame reached his desk, his chair was missing. Someone had hidden it. He stood quietly for a moment, then picked up a plastic chair from the hallway. It was broken on one side, wobbling every time he shifted his weight. Still, he didn't complain. Akojua mopped closer and gently whispered, "Do you want me to help you find your chair?" He shook his head, forcing a small smile. "They want me to react, but I won't." She nodded and walked away slowly, but her chest burned with anger. Later that evening, Akojua found Kwame in the stairwell, breathing heavily, alone. He didn't notice her standing nearby. "I tried so hard," he whispered to himself. "I did everything right. Why do they hate me?" Akojua stepped forward. "You don't deserve any of this." He wiped his tears quickly and smiled faintly. "It's okay. I'm used to it." She looked at him, seeing not just a man, but a warrior. Someone who broke quietly but kept walking. "No," she said gently. "You're not supposed to get used to pain. You're meant to be protected from it. Kwame's lips trembled. Thank you. You're the only one who sees me. She didn't reply, because what she really wanted to say was, I see you, Kwame. And one day soon, the world will see you too. That night, Kwame walked home barefoot through the muddy streets of his neighborhood in Baltimore. His worn-out shoes had finally given up, split open from the rain. His small room in a shared compound greeted him with silence. No electricity again. No food. Just him, his prayers, and a faded photo of his late mother tucked under his thin mattress. While Kwame sat in darkness, Akojoa returned to her real home, a magnificent mansion in Airport Residential Area, the most expensive part of Kumasi. Golden gates opened to reveal marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and gardens that could feed an entire village. This was the home of Akojoa Asantewa Ose-Mensah, CEO of Ose-Mensah Holdings, one of Ghana's biggest companies. She owned the mining corporation where she worked as a cleaner. Standing in her luxurious bathroom, peeling off the fake uniform, she stared at herself in the golden mirror. I wish you could see him, Mama, she whispered to a framed photo on her vanity, her late mother, the woman who had taught her that wealth without character was just expensive emptiness. He's the kind of man you prayed I'd find. Pure heart. Real soul. She hadn't slept much that night, thinking about Kwame, the way his voice trembled but didn't break, the way he held his head high even when humiliated, the way he had whispered a thank you with tears in his eyes. She knew it now. He wasn't just kind. He was special. Rare. And if she wasn't careful, she could lose him. But the next day would test their bond in ways neither could imagine. The next morning, Kwame didn't go straight to his desk. The office air was heavy with whispers. There had been missing money from the petty cash, 2,000 cedis, and management was furious. One of the supervisors pointed at Kwame without evidence. We all saw him near the manager's desk yesterday, Mr. Boten said loudly. They meant Kwame. Kwame stood there, stunned. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I didn't take anything, he finally whispered. Mama ESI folded her arms smugly. Well, you're always wandering around where you don't belong. Security was called. They searched his tiny desk, opened his drawers, even checked his worn-out bag. They found nothing. Still, the shame clung to him like palm oil on skin. Akojoa watched the entire scene from the corner, her hands gripping the mop handle so tightly her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream, to reveal her true identity, to defend him with the power she'd hidden away. But she stayed quiet. For now. Later that day, she found him crying in the stairwell. He wiped his tears quickly when he saw her. I'm okay, he lied. She didn't speak. She sat beside him on the cold concrete step, offering him a clean handkerchief, embroidered with her real initials, AOM. He took it with shaking hands and looked at her. You believe me, right? She nodded slowly. I do. You have an honest heart. The way she said it made something in his chest loosen. No one had ever said that to him before. But the worst was yet to come. The next day, the whisper started again the moment Kwame entered the building. Mama ESI says she saw him talking to the cleaner woman again. Maybe he likes poor women. That's his level. Kwame walked past them with his head up, but the words cut deeper than he let on. When he reached his workstation, he noticed Akojoa cleaning near the main entrance. Her back was slightly hunched, her clothes damp from the morning's work. One of the male supervisors, Yo, walked by holding a steaming cup of coffee. As he passed Akojoa, he accidentally spilled it on her. Oops, Yo smirked. Careful, cleaner woman. Or are you blind? People laughed. Akojoa knelt to clean it quickly, her fingers trembling, her jaw clenched tight. Before she could finish, Kwame walked over, knelt beside her, and helped her clean it up. The office went dead silent. He didn't speak. He simply walked beside her, wiping the floor gently, his shirt getting stained, his heart pounding with righteous anger. Then he looked up directly at Yo. "Do you feel big now?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. "You humiliated a woman who works harder than any of us. Is that what strength looks like to you?" Yo was speechless. People stared. Some giggled nervously, but no one said anything more. Akojua, still on her knees, looked at him in disbelief. She'd been humiliated like this countless times in her disguise, but this time someone knelt with her. This moment would change everything. The stress was becoming too much for Kwame. He had barely eaten in days, his small salary barely covered his rent, let alone food. His body was running on prayers and determination alone. That morning, his hands shook as he tried to type. His vision blurred. His head spun when he stood up too quickly. But still, he came to work. He couldn't afford to miss another day. He had gone to the water dispenser to get some cold water for his headache. On his way back, everything went black. Kwame collapsed. His plastic cup shattered on the tiled floor. Papers flew from his hands. He had fainted from exhaustion and hunger. People screamed, but no one moved. "He's probably faking it for attention," one lady muttered. "Yeah, he always wants pity," another sneered. The manager peeked from his glass office, frowned, and went back to his meeting. Not a single person rushed to help. Except one. Akojua dropped her mop, almost slipped on the wet floor, and ran. She knelt beside him, gently cradling his head. Kwame, please look at me," she said, panic rising in her voice. His lips moved slightly, his eyelids fluttering. He was burning up. His breathing was shallow. Akojua looked around. "Someone call for help," she yelled. No one moved. They just watched like it was entertainment. Something broke inside her. She lifted him, his body limp, arms hanging weakly. With strength that surprised everyone, including herself, she carried him, pushing past people who had once laughed at both of them. "He needs help," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. She ran into the Kumasi heat, barefoot, carrying him all the way to Komfo Anikai Teaching Hospital. At the hospital, everything would change. At the hospital, they laid Kwame on a bed. The doctor examined him and frowned. Severe malnutrition. Exhaustion. Dehydration. This young man hasn't been eating properly for weeks. Akojua sat on a plastic chair, her face in her hands. "He works so hard," she whispered. "He gives what little he has to others, but nobody sees him." The doctor looked at her with interest. "Except you." She looked up, her eyes glassy. "I see him." When Kwame stirred and his eyes opened fully, he smiled weakly. You carried me." Akojua held his hand. "I wasn't leaving you." Tears slid down his face. "No one has ever done that for me before. You're not alone anymore, Kwame." But as she sat there, watching him recover, Akojua made a decision. She couldn't keep living this lie. Not when it meant watching him suffer. She pulled out her phone, not the basic phone she carried as a cleaner, but her real phone. A latest iPhone in a golden case. Kwame was too weak to notice. She made a call. "Kofi. It's me. Tomorrow morning, I want you to prepare everything. It's time." The next day would change both their lives forever. The next morning, the office buzzed with unusual activity. Everyone had been called to an emergency meeting in the main conference hall. "What's happening?" people whispered. Maybe someone got promoted. Maybe they're firing people. Kwame, still weak but determined to walk, sat in the back row. He kept looking around for Akojua, but she was nowhere to be found. The doors opened. Gasps erupted throughout the room. Akojua walked in, but she was transformed. Gone was the faded uniform. Instead, she wore an elegant Kent-inspired business dress, gold jewelry that caught the light, and an aura of unmistakable power. Behind her walked 2 bodyguards and a personal assistant. Whispers flew like wildfire. "Wait, that's Akojua, the cleaner. That can't be." Kwame stared, his mouth open, unsure whether he was dreaming. Akojua walked to the front, took the microphone, and the room fell silent. "I am Akojua Asantewa Osemensa," she said, her voice now carrying the authority of someone born to lead. "CEO and owner of Osemensa Holdings, and this company. I came here months ago, disguised as a cleaner, not to spy, but to find something money can't buy." She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the shocked faces. Character. Integrity. True kindness. Her eyes found Kwame. And I found it in him. People shifted nervously in their seats. "Unfortunately," she continued, "I also found RUTH." She waved her hand, and a large screen descended. CCTV footage began playing, clear evidence of Mama ESI and others stealing money, planning to frame Kwame, laughing about their schemes. The room gasped collectively. Akojua faced them with the authority of a queen. "You framed an innocent man. You stole from MY Company. You mocked someone who showed more loyalty and character than any of you." Security guards entered and approached Mama ESI and her accomplices. "No!" Mama ESI screamed as they handcuffed her. "You tricked us. You were a liar too." Akojua's voice was still. "I disguised myself to protect my heart. You lied to destroy someone else's life." As they dragged the criminals away, the room remained in stunned silence. Kwame sat frozen, overwhelmed, his world completely turned upside down. But the biggest shock was still coming. That evening, Kwame sat by the Kejisha market, watching the sunset paint Kumasi in golden colors. Everything felt like a dream. Akojua was the CEO. The richest woman in Ghana. The person he had defended, comforted, and cared for, had been lying to him all along. A shadow approached. Akojua, still in her CEO attire, but her face soft, vulnerable. She sat beside him on the concrete wall. "I know," she said quietly. "I hate you." Kwame didn't speak. "I wanted to find someone who would love me for who I was, not what I had. So I hid. But I never imagined they would hurt you so badly. And you let me suffer," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You watched me collapse from hunger when you could have fed 1,000 people with your pocket money." Akojua's eyes filled with tears. "If I could undo the pain I caused you, I would. I swear on my mother's grave." Kwame looked away. "I need time." She nodded. "I'll wait. For as long as it takes." 3 days later, Kwame found himself standing outside the massive gates of Akojua's mansion in Airport Residential Area. His heart pounded with every step. When she opened the door, she looked surprised but hopeful. "I've been thinking," he said simply. She stepped aside, and they sat in her living room, a space that could fit his entire compound but somehow felt warm because she was in it. "I understand why you hid," Kwame said after a long silence. "In your world, everyone probably wants something from you. Money, status, connections." Akojua nodded, tears threatening to spill. "What hurts," he continued, "is that when I was at my lowest, collapsing from hunger, you had the power to help but chose to stay hidden." "I know," she whispered. "It was wrong. I was so focused on protecting my heart that I forgot to protect yours." Kwame looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had looked at him with kindness when she was just a cleaner. "But I also know," he said slowly, "that when everyone else laughed at me, you knelt beside me. When everyone else abandoned me, you carried me. Rich or poor, you were the only one who saw me as human." Akojua's breath caught. I don't care about your money, Akosua. I care about your heart. And your heart is beautiful. She reached for his hand. And yours is the most beautiful thing I've ever found. That evening, Akosua took Kwame to see her real world, not the corporate offices or the mansion's public rooms, but her private sanctuary. She led him to a simple garden behind the house, where she had built a small traditional Ashanti hut, wooden walls, thatched roof, and simple furniture. This is where I come when the world gets too loud, she said. When being rich becomes exhausting. Inside, the walls were decorated with photos of her late mother, local artwork, and books, not business journals, but novels and poetry. This is beautiful, Kwame said, running his fingers over a wooden carving. My mother taught me that wealth without roots is just expensive emptiness, Akosua explained. This place keeps me grounded. They sat together on a simple mat, sharing UCHE that Akosua had learned to cook from her childhood nanny. I want to show you something else, she said, and handed him a worn notebook. Inside were pages and pages of her thoughts during her time as a cleaner. Day 15, Kwame shared his lunch with me again. He has so little, but his heart has no limits. Day 23, they humiliated him today. I wanted to fire them all. But then I saw how he handled it with grace. He's teaching me what real strength looks like. Day 31, I think I'm falling in love. Not with his status or looks, but with his soul. Kwame looked up at her, tears in his eyes. You were already planning to reveal yourself. Yes, she said. I was just waiting for the right moment. I never expected them to hurt you so badly. He closed the notebook and pulled her close. We both learned something. You learned that kindness can't be bought. I learned that love sometimes comes in unexpected packages. But their greatest test was still ahead. 6 months later, the hills outside Kumasi were alive with celebration. Akosua and Kwame had chosen to marry not in a 5-star hotel, but in Kwame's home village of Ejisu, under the same baobab tree where his grandparents had wed decades before. Akosua wore a stunning Kent gown, red, gold, and black patterns that told the story of love overcoming adversity. Her jewelry was traditional Ashanti gold, passed down through generations. Kwame wore a handsome agbada in cream and royal blue, embroidered with symbols of strength and faithfulness. The whole village came. Rich and poor sat together on wooden benches, sharing jollof rice and kelewele and palm wine. Akosua's corporate friends sat beside Kwame's neighbors from Bantima. Former enemies from the office sat in the back, some with genuine repentance in their eyes. When the Nana, a village chief, asked them to share their vows, Kwame spoke first. Akosua, you could have chosen anyone in the world. Princes, politicians, millionaires. But you chose the man who had nothing but love to offer. I promise to love your heart before your wealth, your character before your beauty, your dreams before your money. Akosua's voice trembled as she replied, Kwame, you taught me that the richest person is not the one with the most money, but the one with the purest heart. You loved me when you thought I was nobody. I promise to spend my life being worthy of that love. When they kissed, the Kagan drums thundered, children danced, and even the ancestors seemed to smile from the baobab tree's ancient branches. But their greatest blessing was still to come. 1 year later, in the private wing of Ridge Hospital in Accra, a baby's first cry echoed through the halls. Kwame sat beside Akosua's hospital bed, tears streaming down his face as the nurse placed the baby boy in his arms. He has your eyes, Akosua whispered, glowing with exhaustion and joy. They named him Kwaku Osemensa Asante, carrying both their family names and the strength of their love story. His proof, Kwame said softly, that love born from hardship can bloom into something beautiful. As they took little Kwaku home to their new house, not a mansion, but a comfortable family home in East Legon where they could raise him with both privilege and values, the evening was filled with baby giggles, lullabies, and the warm smell of kontimaya stew that Akosua had learned to cook. Kwame would feed Kwaku while Akosua sat beside them, humming old tree songs her mother once sang. They had no need to prove anything anymore. Their joy was quiet and complete. My people, this is more than a story. It's a reminder that true love doesn't come wearing expensive clothes or driving luxury cars. It comes softly, wearing humility, hidden beneath pain, tested by storms. Sometimes the person you least expect is the treasure you've been praying for. Kwame could have ignored her like everyone else, but he chose kindness. Akosua could have stayed hidden in her wealth forever, but she chose to search for real love. So don't give up. Even when people mock your gentleness. Even when life feels unfair. Even when love seems impossible. Hold on. Because one day, your story, like Kwame and Akosua's, will not only be told, it will be remembered. Love is not about what you see. It's about what you feel, even when no one else does. And when it finds you, may it find you ready. Which part made you cry? Tell us in the comments. Have you ever been judged by your appearance? Share your story below. What would you have done in Kwame's situation? Tag someone who deserves a love like this. Like this story. Share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Subscribe for more heartwarming stories that will restore your faith in humanity.